Okay, let's dive in. Imagine stepping back to the night of March 3rd, 1861. It's really tense in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, you can almost feel it, can't you? The city's just buzzing with fear, uncertainty.
Right. And Mary Lincoln, apparently, she couldn't sleep, just peering out from her hotel window at Willard's, looking at all these strangers milling around.
It's a city on edge because the nation itself is fractured. 7 states have already seceded. The air is just thick with, well, with what's coming.
And Washington itself, it kind of mirrored the country, didn't it? Grand plans, the Capitol dome still unfinished, the Washington Monument just a sump. Ambitious but incomplete and sort of teetering.
Exactly. It's a perfect metaphor. A nation and a capital city on the verge of breakdown.
And the stakes, huge. Because the next day, Abraham Lincoln, this guy, many people were dismissing, the little Illinois lawyer who's
Right.
about to be inaugurated.
And his job, his mission, is somehow to hold together a union that looks like it's actively tearing itself apart. It's an almost impossible task.
So that's what we're digging into today. How did Lincoln navigate this incredibly treacherous period, from writing that crucial inaugural address right up to the first shots at Fort Sumter?
Yeah, we're really looking at his leadership style, his strategic thinking, and this amazing ability he had to pull together a functioning team from people who were, frankly, his biggest rivals.
A team of rivals, as the book calls it.
Yeah,
You got William Seward, his main political opponent, now set to be Secretary of State.
right. And Salmon P. Chase, a serious anti-slavery hardliner, as Treasury Secretary, plus Montgomery Blair, a staunch Unionist from this very powerful, very argumentative family, as Postmaster General.
These guys all had their own ideas, their own ambitions. They definitely didn't always see eye to eye. You could just imagine the clashes.
Oh, yeah. So our goal here is to unpack how Lincoln managed all that, the personalities, the immense pressure as the country just barrels towards war.
Okay, so let's start with that inaugural address. It sounds like his writing process was different.
It really was very different from his peers. He called it cumulative thought. He'd work on an idea, write a paragraph, put it aside maybe for days, maybe weeks.
Okay,
Then he'd come back, polish it, refine it. He wasn't like, say, Seward or Chase, who'd draw on loads of historical texts. Lincoln built his core arguments on just 4 key documents.
which were?
The Constitution, obviously. Andrew Jackson's proclamation against nullification, basically asserting federal power. Daniel Webster's big Liberty and Union speech, and a key speech by Henry Clay. He was constructing a solid, almost legal framework.
That makes sense. He's walking such a fine line, isn't he? Needs to be firm about the Union, but also try to calm down the southern states.
It's a total tightrope walk, force versus conciliation. And his first draft, it leaned pretty heavily on the force side.
So who helped him adjust the balance?
A key figure was his friend Orville Browning. Lincoln initially wrote he would reclaim federal property that had already been taken, like Fort Moultrie down in Charleston.
Okay, that sounds pretty confrontational.
Exactly. Browning warned him, said it would sound like a threat. He argued it was crucial that if conflict came, the traitors shall be the aggressors. Lincoln listened. He changed it to only hold, occupy, and possess what the Union still held, a really critical strategic shift.
And then William Seward, his soon-to-be Secretary of State, gets involved. He saw that early draft and was pretty alarmed, right?
Deeply concerned. Seward thought the tone was way too forceful, that it would just push more states out, especially Virginia. He zeroed in on a line pledging adherence to the Chicago platform, the Republican anti-slavery stance.
Which the seceding states were pointing to as a reason for leaving.
Precisely. Even Lincoln's own pick for Attorney General, Edward Bates, called that platform exclusive and defiant. Seward basically said, keep that in, and Virginia and Maryland might go tomorrow, and then where's Washington, D.C.? Lincoln took it out, showed he was willing to compromise for the bigger picture.
But Seward helped soften the opening. What else? Any specific word changes?
Oh, lots. Seward went through suggesting changes to dial down the rhetoric, like changing treasonable acts to the slightly less charged revolutionary.
Subtle, but important.
Yeah. And instead of calling the Supreme Court a potential despotism, he suggested that eminent tribunal. Again, softening the edges. And then there was the whole issue of that proposed constitutional amendment.
The one guaranteeing slavery where it existed, passed right before he took office.
That's the one. Lincoln had initially opposed it, but with Congress passing it literally on the eve of his inauguration, he reversed course. He declared he had no objection to its being made express and irrevocable, a major concession.
And that brings us to the closing lines, the famous ones. Seward suggested something more hopeful, more affectionate.
He did. He gave Lincoln language about mystic chords of memory and suggested a guardian angel watching over the nation.
Lincoln tweaked it.
He tweaked it brilliantly. Seward's guardian angel is external. Lincoln changed it to the better angels of our nature. He put the potential for good, for reconciliation, inside the people themselves. It's just a beautiful, profound shift in meaning.
Okay, fast forward. Inauguration Day,
Yeah.
March 4th, 1861. Even though Seward had shaped the speech, he was apparently still privately grumbling about Lincoln being a little Illinois lawyer.
Yeah, that tension was definitely there. Seward felt he should have been president. The inauguration itself was quite a scene. You had Lincoln, 52, looking pretty energetic in his new suit and hat.
Contrasting with Buchanan, the outgoing president, who looked old and sorrowful.
Right, and the security was intense. Soldiers everywhere, sharpshooters on rooftops, cavalry patrols. The assassination fears were very real.
And I read about the weird detail of the squeaking shoes from one delegation.
Ha! Yes, the New England delegation's shoes apparently made this awful squeaking noise, added a slightly bizarre, ominous sound, but thankfully nothing came of it.
And the ceremony itself, on the Capitol steps. Talk about symbolism. Lincoln's up there with Buchanan, his old rival Stephen Douglas.
And Chief Justice Roger Taney, the man behind the Dred Scott decision, which had poured fuel on the fire. Lincoln had once basically called those three guys conspirators, working to tear down the Union. Now they're all sharing a platform.
Wow. And Douglas actually held Lincoln's hat.
Yeah, a nice little moment of civility amidst the tension. Douglas took his hat when Lincoln stepped up to speak. And Lincoln's voice, apparently clear and strong from all those outdoor speeches back west, carried over that huge crowd, maybe 30,000 people.
So when he delivered the address, what were the main points he hammered home?
He sent some very clear signals. First, to the South. I have no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists. I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so. Very direct reassurance.
But he also had to address federal law.
Yes, he acknowledged his duty to enforce the Fugitive Slave Law, even though he admitted it grated against the moral sense up north. A tough balancing act there.
And the Union itself.
Unbreakable. He declared it perpetual and famously said, physically speaking, we cannot separate. Then came the core pledge, clearly aimed at places like Fort Sumter. He would hold, occupy, and possess the property in places belonging to the government.
But he paired that with a promise, right?
He did. He immediately followed up by saying there would be no invasion, no using of force beyond what was needed to hold those places. He wasn't going to start a fight.
Which put the ball squarely in the South's court.
Absolutely. That was the genius of it. He laid it right out. In your hands, my dissatisfied fellow countrymen, and not in mine, is the momentous issue of civil war. The government will not assail you. You can have no conflict without being yourselves the aggressors. Then the better angel's closing, and Taney swore him in. Masterful framing.
And the speech travels fast, telegraph, Pony Express out west. Record time to California.
But how did people react? Predictably, all over the map. Republican papers loved it. Grand, admirable, conciliatory. Northern Democrats hated it. Wretchedly botched, they said, accusing him of starting a war.
And the South.
They saw him as a fanatic. Their papers basically said, war is inevitable now. But, interestingly, some reports noted it got a reasonably okay reception in some of the border slave states that hadn't seceded yet. So maybe that tightrope walk had some success in those crucial areas.
Seward must have been relieved his edits were in there.
Definitely. Gave him political cover. Charles Francis Adams Sr., another important figure, also felt relieved. But then you get the really powerful counterpoint from Frederick Douglass.
The great abolitionist. What was his view? He must have been watching closely.
He was watching very closely, and he was deeply disappointed. Initially hopeful about Lincoln, Douglass felt the address was a step back. Lincoln's pledge not to interfere with slavery, and worse, his willingness to enforce the Fugitive Slave Law. Douglass felt Lincoln was forced to grovel before slavery, a really harsh critique.
It's a vital perspective. It shows the impossible pressures Lincoln was under from all sides.
Exactly. Even as he's trying to hold the Union together, he's seen by some key allies as making unacceptable compromises.
Meanwhile, the Lincolns are moving into the White House. You get this image of their young sons, Willie and Tad, bringing a very different energy.
Oh yeah, total kid energy. Apparently running wild through the halls, interrupting meetings, just being boys, 10 and almost 8.
And Mary Lincoln, initially at least, seemed to be enjoying her role.
Reports say she was quite happy at first, held a very successful first reception, or levee, Impress the Washington society types, even seemed to outshine Seward's wife for a moment. But that honeymoon period, politically and personally, was about to end very abruptly.
Because the crisis doesn't wait. His very first morning in office, Lincoln gets bad news.
Really bad news. A dispatch arrives from Major Robert Anderson, the commander at Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor. He says his supplies are running out fast, he can't hold on much longer, and the Army chief, General Winfield Scott, basically says you have to surrender it.
Wow. Talk about hitting the ground running. This immediately tests his inaugural promises, doesn't it?
Instantly, he just pledged to hold, occupy, and possess federal property. Sumter is the symbol of that, but he also promised not to be the aggressor. Giving up Sumter looks weak, maybe fatal to the Union's credibility. Trying to resupply it by force likely starts a war. It's a classic catch-22.
And on top of this massive strategic problem, the White House is apparently swarming with people wanting jobs.
Absolute chaos. Hundreds of office seekers lining the halls, demanding appointments. Aides are telling Lincoln, you can't see all these people, you need to focus.
Bree insists.
He does. He famously says something like, they don't want much, I must see them. Which, to some observers, Sumner, Adams, even Seward, looked like weakness, like he didn't grasp the gravity of the situation or couldn't manage his time.
But was he really unfocused? Or was he processing the Sumter problem beneath the surface?
I think the latter. The accounts describe him late at night, alone in the library, reading his Bible, just wrestling with this Fort Sumter decision. He wasn't ignoring it. He immediately sent a note back to General Scott demanding details. Hard numbers.
And Scott's reply.
Grim. Scott reported Anderson could maybe last another 26 days. And reinforcing the fort, Scott said it would take a huge force, ships, troops, something that would take 6 to 8 months to assemble. Basically, Scott was saying relief was impossible in the time frame.
So Lincoln calls in his cabinet. He's not rushing things.
No, described as disinclined to hasty action. He wants advice. This is where Francis Blair Sr. and his son Monty Blair, the Postmaster General, really dig in their heels against surrender. They see it as giving in to treason. Sumter must be held.
And this is when Gustavus Fox's plan comes up.
Yes. Monty Blair brings in his brother-in-law, Fox. He's a former Navy man with this quite clever plan to use tugboats under the cover of darkness, maybe with a supporting steamer, to slip supplies into Sumter. Lincoln's interested. He asks Fox to present it.
And then Lincoln does something pretty unusual at that cabinet meeting on March 15th.
Very unusual. He doesn't just want verbal opinions. He asks each cabinet member to give him a written answer to a specific question. Assuming it's possible to provision Sumter, is it wise to try it?
Written answers. That forces them to commit, doesn't it? So, what was the verdict?
Overwhelmingly negative at first. Seward argued strongly against it. He was terrified it would start the war and push crucial states like Virginia and North Carolina straight into the Confederacy. His advice was, play defense, let the South make the first move.
What about Chase, the anti-slavery hardliner? You'd think he'd be for holding the fort.
You would, but his reply was surprisingly wishy-washy. Evasive and equivocal, it's described as. He didn't want war now, but somehow still ended with an affirmative answer. Very contradictory.
And the others?
Bates, Cameron, Wells, Smith. They were all against it or had serious doubts. Fear of starting a war, certainty of failure, making things worse. Cameron, the Secretary of War, even suggested if they were going to give it up, the sooner it be done, the better.
So, who was for it?
Only Montgomery Blair. He was emphatically yes. He argued surrender would just embolden the rebels. Lincoln needed to show Jacksonian firmness. So the initial tally, 5 against, 1 ambiguous, only 1 in favor.
That's a heavy vote against action. But Lincoln didn't just accept it.
No, he appeared to waver, according to some reports, but really he was gathering more intelligence. He sent Fox himself down to Charleston to talk to Anderson. Anderson confirmed, yeah, he could hold out until about April 15th if they went on half rations.
And didn't Lincoln send someone else, too? Someone with local knowledge?
Yes, crucially, he sent Stephen Hurlbut, who knew Charleston well, to gauge the mood, to see if there was any lingering Unionist feelings Seward was counting on.
And the news wasn't good.
Devastating. Hurlbut came back and reported Unionism in South Carolina was totally dead. He said separate nationality is a fixed fact. This directly undercut Seward's whole strategy of waiting for Southern sentiment to turn back.
Meanwhile, the cabinet is still bickering over jobs.
Oh, constantly. Petty feuds, intense rivalries. Chase calling Smith a cipher. Seward furious about certain appointments going to Chase's allies. There was real jealousy over Seward's closeness to Lincoln, those frequent private meetings.
Is that why they asked for regular meetings?
Seems like it. Chase, kind of acting as spokesman for the others, requested formal cabinet meetings twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays at noon. Lincoln agreed, trying to manage the team.
We have observers watching all this, like William Russell from the London Times. What was his impression?
Russell saw Seward as this subtle, quick man, really enjoying his power. He found Lincoln very affable, a great storyteller. Lincoln apparently compared the Times' influence to the Mississippi River. Russell also noted Mary Lincoln seemed a bit stiff, while Kate Chase, Salmon Chase's daughter, was considered the real queen of society.
But Russell didn't know everything. Lincoln was keeping secrets, even during state dinners.
That's right. Just before that big state dinner Russell attended, Lincoln received another bombshell from General Scott.
Worse than the first one.
Much worse, politically. Scott was now advising Lincoln to abandon both Fort Sumter and Fort Pickens down in Florida, another key federal fort. Scott thought giving up both might keep the Upper South loyal. Lincoln got this news, tucked it away, and hosted the dinner like nothing happened.
Incredible composure.
But it must have come out eventually.
It did in the next cabinet meeting. And Montgomery Blair reportedly exploded. He accused General Scott of playing politics, basically implying Seward had gotten to him. Blair invoked Andrew Jackson again. If you temporize, you are lost.
Lincoln described this period as the worst trial he had faced. A sleepless night. What decision did he reach?
He reached his own decision, likely before the cabinet formally shifted. But the next day, he laid out all the intelligence, Scott's advice, Fox's report, and crucially, Hurlbut's assessment that unionism in South Carolina was dead.
And the cabinet's view changed, dramatically. Presented with the full picture, a majority, everyone except Seward and Caleb Smith, now advised Lincoln to resupply both Sumter and Pickens. They essentially came around to supporting the course Lincoln had already decided on. It was a major moment of him asserting control.
This must have been a huge blow to Seward. His assumptions were collapsing.
Completely. His belief that he was the real power, that abandoning Sumter would somehow magically fix things gone. He'd even been giving the Confederate commissioners back-channel assurances through an intermediary that Sumter would be evacuated any day now.
Which leads to that astonishing memo Seward wrote on April 1st. Some thoughts for the president's consideration.
Astonishing is the word. It's almost unbelievable. He starts by telling the president the administration has no policy, domestic or foreign.
Bold.
Then he repeats his argument. Give up Sumter, focus on Pickens as the symbol, but then he goes completely off the rails. He suggests provoking a foreign crisis, demand explanations from Spain, France, Britain, Russia about perceived meddling, and if they don't answer satisfactorily, declare war.
Declare war on European powers to solve the domestic crisis. That sounds insane.
Historians certainly see it that way. It was desperate and dangerous. And then the ending, he basically tells Lincoln, look, someone needs to run this policy energetically. Either you do it, Mr. President, or you delegate it to a cabinet member. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He's offering to be prime minister.
How on earth did Lincoln react to that? Did he fire him?
That's what makes Lincoln remarkable. He didn't fire him. He didn't even humiliate him publicly. He drafted a very short, very direct reply, but decided not to send it. Instead, he handled it privately in person.
What did he say, essentially?
He gently but firmly reminded Seward that the inaugural address was the domestic policy holding federal property, with Sumter not being abandoned. He noted foreign policy was being worked on. And then the killer line, asserting his own authority. I remark that if this must be done, I must do it. Calmly, quietly, he put Seward back in his place. An incredible display of leadership strength combined with magnanimity.
Amazing. But Seward doesn't just give up, does he? He keeps pushing on the Fort Pickens plan.
He does. And this leads to a major, almost farcical blunder involving the USS Powhatan, the Navy's best warship.
The ship mix-up.
Yeah.
What happened there?
In the rush, Lincoln basically signed conflicting orders without realizing it. One set, pushed by Seward, secretly ordered the Powhatan to Fort Pickens in Florida. Another set, from Navy Secretary Gideon Welles, assigned the same ship to lead Gustavus Fox's relief expedition to Fort Sumter. Neither secretary knew about the other's orders for the ship.
Oh, no.
Meanwhile, Welles is proceeding with the Sumter Plan, and Lincoln drafts this carefully worded message to the governor of South Carolina saying an attempt will be made to supply Sumter with provisions only. No troops, no ammo, unless they're fired upon. Again, putting the burden of starting hostilities on them.
But the Powhatan is double booked. When did they figure it out?
Late at night, just as the expeditions were launching, a telegram comes in revealing the conflict. Seward has to confess his secret Pickens mission to Wells. They rush to Lincoln. He realizes the mistake, takes full blame, carelessness, heedlessness on his part, he apparently said.
And he tries to fix it.
He tells Seward, send a telegram immediately. Tell the Powhatan commander to turn back and support the Sumter mission. Seward reluctantly sends it. But the commander, Captain Porter, is already at sea heading for Florida. He gets the telegram from Seward, but it's not signed by the president. He decides his original orders, for Pickens via Seward but signed by Lincoln, take precedence. He ignores Seward's telegram and steams on to Florida. The Powhatan is gone.
So Fox's Sumter mission is already hobbled before it even arrives.
It's critically hobbled. Fox gets off Charleston looking for the Powhatan, his main muscle. It's nowhere to be found. And worse, the Confederates already know he's coming. They'd intercepted messages.
So the fuse is lit.
The fuse is lit. Around 3:30 a.m. on April 12th, General Beauregard, who ironically had been Anderson's artillery student at West Point, sends a note to Anderson saying he'll open fire in 1 hour.
And the Confederates bombard the fort.
They do. Anderson's tiny garrison, maybe 60 men effective, against thousands of surrounding Confederate troops and cannons. The fort catches fire. It's hopeless.
How long did they hold out?
About 34 hours. Then Anderson surrendered. He insisted on a 50-gun salute to the American flag as they evacuated. Tragically, during the salute, an accidental cannon explosion killed one Union private, the first fatality. Beauregard respectfully waited for Anderson, his old teacher, to leave before Confederate troops occupied the fort.
Fox must have been devastated. His plan failed.
He was inconsolable. But Lincoln, characteristically, took the blame for the Powhatan mix-up, but also pointed to the bigger picture. He told Fox something like, look, we both knew this attempt, even if it failed, would advance the country's cause, and the result justifies that.
Because the Confederates fired first.
Exactly. Lincoln had maneuvered brilliantly. He had upheld his promise to hold federal property, but he had done it in such a way attempting only to resupply with food that the Confederacy had to choose to start the fight. They fired the first shot. His promise that the government wouldn't be the aggressor was fulfilled.
And the result, tragically, was war.
The beginning of 4 long, bloody years. Over 600,000 lives lost, more than all other American wars combined up to recent times. A terrible price for a nation of just 31.5 million back then.
So looking back at this deep dive, what really stands out about Lincoln's leadership in these critical first weeks?
It's just incredible political skill, isn't it? He managed this cabinet of intense rivals, synthesized all this conflicting advice, admitted his own mistakes like the Powhatan blunder, but stayed focused on the strategic goal, preserve the Union, but ensure the other side started the war.
That combination of being firm yet magnanimous, especially with Seward, seems key. Building a coalition even when people are actively working against each other or think they should be in charge.
Absolutely. It really shows his leadership emerging, his strategic mind at work, and how his own sense of morality was tied up in that strategy. He wouldn't compromise on the Union, but he maneuvered carefully to ensure the Union wasn't the aggressor.
It makes you think, doesn't it? What if he had just listened to Seward and abandoned Sumter? Or if he hadn't managed that cabinet, hadn't taken responsibility for the errors? How different could things have been?
It's a fascinating counterfactual. His blend of humility, admitting error, with that deep strategic vision and firm resolve, it really offers lessons for leadership even today, especially when you're facing what feel like impossible choices in a deeply divided time.
Definitely something to ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into such a pivotal moment in American history.